My mom was born during the time of the Khmer Rouge era where the Pol Pot regime executed people who were educated and were suspected of being educated.
That she would tell me like, yeah, I hurt my leg and I lost my family, and she would like be alone in the jungle, just like sleeping on skulls because there were so many around and stuff like that.
My grandfather, my mom's father, was lucky enough to hide himself because he himself was teaching as a school teacher, and he passed off as illiterate and being someone who was not necessarily as smart or as educated, and that's how he survived.
My name is Vanndearlyn Vong. I'm 18 years old, and this is Prisk Elementary, where I started my educational journey.
Hi, my name is Franklin, and I am currently 17 years old. I just graduated yesterday from my high school, and this is my elementary school.
Also, we would have like reading time, and my cousin was able to read, and I kind of knew how, but I couldn't go through an entire book. Like, I could just read a few sentences, and the other kids would like be zooming through the books. In second grade, we started writing essays, and then some kids were writing 5-paragraph essays, and I was just writing one. Things like that.
You know, she always like sets these boundless expectations, like if you fail, you will probably like have something horrible happen to you, like you would die.
I was pretty much independent in applying for college. The only like support I had was when I asked my mom for her tax papers because they need it for FAFSA, and she was like, "Here it is, go fill it out," and that was it. So that was definitely an influence in my life. It was kind of like, hey, drugs are okay. Your parent is a refugee. You're not going to be rich and bathing in money. You're going to be poor. Your family is probably going to have problems because your parents need to work and they can't really be there for you. They can't fit that typical mold of what a parent should be because of the circumstances that you're in. When it was that time to apply for college, and like you already get enough pressure from other adults and peers like, hey, where are you applying to, or like, what do you want to major in? And then like, junior, I don't know what I want to do with my entire life. That's just so broad of a question. adding on to that, I wasn't really sure which colleges I liked. I didn't really have the time or money to tour colleges. What else? I didn't really have the support to apply to a bunch of colleges. Like, the application process seems kind of daunting, even with a common application, because a lot of the times private schools will have a separate essay question that you need to write to, and that needs to be amazing or else they're probably not going to admit you. Like, for Cal State Long Beach, I spent months on my university honors application for the essay part. And so imagine having to do that for 5 other colleges that you would want to go to. There just wasn't enough time in my schedule and not enough background information that I had to apply to a lot of schools. And like I said, my siblings, they supported me emotionally through getting a higher education, but it's not like they could be like, oh, hey, this is what people at USC want to hear from you. Like, there was none of that because I remember going on really long car rides just to get to school. It was about a 20-minute commute from Cambodia town.
It's Sweetwater Springs, located in Spring Valley, California. And this is where I began my educational journey through the American system when I arrived here in 2004.
Always tardy to class, always got those weird looks when walking in late from the other kids. Was nothing like mine. Their mom didn't have to work long hours, and they had a dad in the family.
Enrolled in English learning classes at the time. It was sort of like a preschoolish kind of area, international school, but it wasn't really as comprehensive as learning the language for what it could and actually is. And I had a hard time, even with my mom, like helping me out with the alphabets, for example. And when I came here, it was hard for me to communicate with my teachers, hard for me to follow directions or what they're trying to get me to do. And also it was hard for me to connect with others with this language barrier.
And also I didn't really fit in because I wasn't in the accelerated classes, and my cousin was in the accelerated classes. And she got along well with the other kids, just naturally. So that was really awkward.
And books were a sort of conduit for me to get to know the language better. I would really praise J.K. Rowling at this point for her Harry Potter books. Those were my love. I started them out like in 2nd grade, for example, and by 4th grade I had finished like the entire series. I was like, yeah, fantasy, huh?
Didn't have to worry about their income or filling out their emergency cards by themselves. What embarrassed me was that I just couldn't fit in, and I remember like just being so ashamed of my mom because she didn't have American manners, and she still doesn't. So like I would always correct her, like, Mom, you're being really loud and we're in public on the phone right now. Like, that's just not very American. Speaking loudly and like always being late to events, just things like that.
How long did it take you to start noticing differences between the way your family behaved and the way other people behaved?
I want to say 3rd grade. Yeah, with the emergency card thing.
I wasn't able to have a lot of friends during my time in kindergarten. And that's the time when that language barrier is what brought about sort of a misunderstanding in the education system, that I wasn't necessarily as intelligent as I could be, and so I got low grades because I couldn't necessarily comprehend what they were saying or doing. However, coming in young in the education system of America and learning English, you sort of get used to it over the time. you sort of acquire a taste for the language. For me, this is the library. I personally visited here a bunch of times and got super fascinated in reading. And
So, how did your skills as a self-taught and independent learner help you later?
For this point, I would say I was going with the flow. I originally came to this school because, that was a sort of recommendation from my aunt and uncle who I moved here with my mom and who lived there, and say, oh hey, there's this community school nearby. I originally came here with the intent of acquiring an American education, of furthering myself through education. So the office gave me an option for a local middle school in the area, which was known for its violence, for its crime, for its low academic standing, and my mom was concerned about that. And she looked for options. She went to her work and asked her fellow co-workers. They were Vietnamese, and they helped her out by recommending this school called the Price School up in La Jolla. And they gave her an application. I applied, and through lottery, that was how I got in, and that's how I left Spring Valley to go up to La Jolla and go to school every day. Every day my mom would drive me to elementary school. She would always say, always do well in school, don't slip up, because you would be a failure, miserable in life, not to get a job, like all of those other horrible things, which I look back now aren't exactly true, but it really kept on motivating me. That sort of fear, but a sort of healthy dose of fear. Like the fear that you wouldn't want to disappoint your mom and your family and all those other traditional aspects that come with living in a traditional Asian household.
Besides the low academic standing of the alternate school you could have chosen from, what effects did you see that have on other people in your age group or your peers?
When trying to compare my situation and standing with that of my fellow peers who graduated here in 5th grade with me, I try to keep track of them through Facebook and other connections. And I contacted this really good friend of mine. His name was John, and he told me about all of the things that were happening with all of our other fellow students. And John said that all of these bad things, like some kid got expelled, some kid got pregnant, and others didn't really have as bright of a future. They didn't necessarily, when I asked them about if they were going to take the SAT or ACT, they didn't necessarily know which dates or which ones or whether they should take it. They don't have that same kind of motivation. Or, I wouldn't say motivation, but I don't think that they were part of that culture, of that college-going culture where they could further themselves through education and go through the American high school system, for example, with the thought of college at the end of the line.
Do you think that your high school ultimately helped shape your educational trajectory?
Definitely. Mostly it's because of the teachers I had. I remember freshman year I walked into Mr. Van's room, and I'll give you guys kind of context. He's this kind of old white man, got a little beard right here, and he's always stroking it. He'll randomly scream just to scare the class. He wears all black. He's got Doc Martens that are 5 years old. And he didn't seem welcoming at first, but after a couple of weeks he was like, Vanndearlyn, you're a superstar. Yeah, and that's the first time a teacher ever said that to me. Not that in elementary, middle school my teachers weren't supportive, but they were just kind of neutral, whereas with Mr. Van he was so welcoming. And then I continued to get that type of support from all my teachers, no matter which SLC. So I'm in Compass at Millikan, which is the arts-based academy. And then there are some classes, like freshman year, your English class is with your SLC, and then as you take AP classes, you're just mixed with other kids. But I found encouragement and acceptance from Quest teachers and MIT teachers, Peace teachers, so definitely.
How do you think you would be different if you hadn't gone to the Price School?
I wouldn't know. I can't really say because I haven't experienced that, but going through my time at Price, it was a college-going culture, for sure, yes. But also if I were to go to, say, that high school right over there, right across the street, maybe I wouldn't have had those opportunities. Maybe I wouldn't have gotten into those AP classes because at Price, all the students were required to take AP classes, no matter your situation or your academic standing or your potential to go on to college. The thing with the American education system in high school is that the teachers are the ones who choose whether students get to take AP courses based on their ability or their current track in high school right then, of whether they can succeed in that school course or even go to college. And even with that certain select group of like say 20 or 30 people who take an AP course, the teacher at the end of the year before the AP test in May will go around and say, you, and you are going to take the AP test. The rest of you may not be because you're not necessarily the ones who are going to pass. And so they selectively choose these students so that they can represent the school on those test scores that, hey, we've got like a high percentage of kids who passed the test and got high scores. And it's this sort of discrimination of saying that you can't necessarily do it because of what you've done before in the past or what you are right now. But this lack of faith in students is concerning to me.
Are you also kind of insinuating that the system that was blind to your background rather than one that took it into account was more helpful than one that would have?
I would think that I would have struggled more in a traditional American educational system, such as that high school over there. I would have struggled more, but I may have succeeded, but I wouldn't have had the same resources, the same kind of support network that was there at Price.
So those three main points you touched on were the mentor, which I hear a lot. That seems to be a main tenet of the charter school method.
Yes.
The family support and the network of friends.
Definitely.
Because she and I were very close, and she knew my involvement in the Cambodian community, so I think that's what prompted her to nominate me.
How did you start getting involved with the Khmer community?
It was sophomore year, and my mom pushed me to get involved in KPA, which is the Khmer Parent Association, an organization here in Long Beach, and I started going there actually for help with tutoring, and then she started having me volunteer for like different community events. Every year they have like an annual Khmer Health Forum that I helped her with, and then as time went on, she gave me like bigger and bigger roles in terms of volunteering and helping.
You can talk about UCC.
Okay, so at the end of sophomore year, I got involved in CALI, which stands for the Cambodian Advocacy Leadership Institute, and it's basically a partnership of 5 different community organizations. So that included KPA, UCC, which is the United Cambodian Community, KGA, which is Khmer Girls in Action, CAA, which is the Cambodian Association of America, and Families in Good Health from St. Mary's. So they came together, and basically their purpose was to train people on advocacy. So they trained me for about a year, and then after that we went up to Sacramento, some of us, and we advocated for a bill, which was SB 291. It didn't pass, but that experience pushed me towards pursuing political science. I spent a couple weeks doing this online course, and it was to become a certified research assistant. And then I spent all of my summer conducting interviews, and they lasted about an hour. And they asked questions about mental health, education, income, I remember one of them was like, do you help your child with homework, or are you able to help your child with homework? So it was very comprehensive, and I think they're still going through the data right now, actually. And so the purpose of that is so we use the new data to help advocate for the community even more, since the last surveys that were done were like, I want to say 2011.
I like it, and I recommend like other people do it as well. Like at least do some of their time in the food service industry, so that you understand what these people are going through. Like when they're fulfilling your order for fries, like how much of their troubles you have to go through.
So I have my diploma now.
Thank you. Congratulations.
I applied to Cal State Long Beach, and then I started applying at Mills Women's College, mainly because I heard good things about Mills. But I didn't have that much information about Mills, and by the time I applied, I procrastinated, I'm not gonna lie. And Cal State Long Beach was the school I knew most about.
Was there anywhere else that you wanted to apply?
I wanted to apply to Harvard just to see if they would accept me. But then I changed my mind because I got a D in AP Calculus the first semester of my senior year. So I just thought that that D on my transcript would have taken me out of the pool of applicants that they would have considered. On being really involved on campus, I know I want to join the Cambodian Student Society, possibly get involved in their ASI, which is their student government. Maybe get a job on campus, because McDonald's isn't the most glorious job. It's okay. Yeah, I just plan on being really focused. School is my #1 priority, and yeah. I got accepted into Cal State Long Beach as a President's Scholar. So like, even if I didn't get that, my financial aid would have covered all of my tuition. But since they gave me such a generous amount, I decided to just dorm on campus with my